the things that I talk about a lot is the fact that there are a lot of layers to the ethical and fair trade fashion world. It's not just about pretty handmade clothes. There are so many complex issues that really kind of hide beneath the surface, or sometimes maybe they're brought to the surface. Everything from the orphan crisis to human trafficking to child and slave labor. All those types of things really are there hiding beneath the surface. And it's time that we talk about those issues so that people can understand why ethical and fair trade fashion is so important and why it's important to be purchasing from companies and brands that you know the practices behind the things that they make. And it's time, in my opinion, that we talk about those things and we bring them to the surface and we make it not scary anymore to have difficult conversations. Welcome to Business with Purpose. I'm your host, Molly Stillman of stillbeingmolly.com, and this show's all about bringing you the stories behind the brands, companies, and small businesses that are changing the world. Each week, I interview an entrepreneur, a CEO, nonprofit director, community leader, or just an all-around amazing person who's trying to make a positive impact, not only through their personal life, but also with their professional career. My goal is to show you that no matter what you do for a living, you can make an impact right where you are. My guest this week is Carly Burson, the founder of Tribe Alive. Tribe Alive is one of my favorite ethical fashion brands. They employ and empower artisans in 6 countries around the world, and they are the epitome of a brand that is changing communities, countries, and people's lives. This was such a fun conversation, and we talk about just about everything. So without further ado, on to my conversation with Carly. Hey, Carly, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Molly. I'm so excited to be here and so excited to get some time to chat with you.
I am so excited to finally connect because I feel like we have so many friends in common that I'm like, how have we not connected yet? So Emily Sexton and Taylor Meadows are both.
I feel like I've known you for years.
I know.
Just because of them. So it is strange that we haven't connected until now.
I know. So, and I feel like the last couple times you've been in town, been in the Raleigh area, like I was out of town or something. So I don't know. Our paths keep crossing. But
yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get together in person soon.
I know. So I'm really looking forward to, because I've been a huge fan of yours and Tribe Alive for so long. I was introduced to you originally by Taylor. And so Taylor and I met because Emily and I were friends first. And for the listeners, you know Emily Sexton because I've had her on the show. And she also co-hosted my gift guide episode with me back in November, which was so much fun to do.
Oh, fun.
And she's hilarious. And so Taylor and I met because we were both models for a Root Collective shoot. And
so we both know Bethany.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We both know Bethany.
Yes.
Which Bethany, I just feel like at this point knows everyone. Like everyone I talk to is like, oh, yeah, Bethany Tran. I know her. Like we're like BFFs. But so Bethany and Taylor and I were models for a Root Collective shoot. And this was like years ago because I wasn't even pregnant with Amos yet. I think this is maybe like 2014 or 2015. And so that was how Taylor and I met. And we just immediately clicked because we have very similar, like, goofy personalities. And
I love that.
Yeah.
She's so much fun.
We're
so great friends. And I miss her. I miss all of them. Bethany, Emily, Taylor. It's such an amazing group of women.
They really are. So you need to clearly come back and to the Raleigh area so that we can all hang out. This would be fun.
Last time we were in Raleigh, I said to my husband, I was like, we could live here. We loved it.
Yes.
Like, we loved Raleigh.
Yes. Where do you live? I don't think I actually know that.
Yeah, so we live in Fort Worth, Texas now. I'm originally from the East Coast, but we've been in Texas for about 5 years now, I think.
I love Texas. I have been there a few times, and every time I go, I'm like, I think Texas is the only state that I would like legitimately consider moving to, like leaving North Carolina, because North Carolina is my home now. I mean, I was born in Virginia, raised in Virginia, but North Carolina is where I call home, and I don't ever envision leaving. But I'm like, I think Texas is probably the only place that I would be like, yeah, I could move to Texas.
Yeah, and it's so nice to hear you say that, because honestly, I wasn't thrilled about moving to Texas. I think if you're not from here, you don't really know how much it has to offer, but we're so happy here. It's been such a great place to raise our family, to start our business. It's really diverse, which is so important to us. And people are just so kind here. Like the community that we've been able to just build up around us. I literally don't know how I could be a mother anywhere else because we have just this amazing village. So yeah, we're really happy here. And I try to be so much more of an advocate for Texas, especially to, my people back home in the Northeast. And I think it just, it's kind of like this gem that people just don't know about. It has so many great things going for it.
Yeah, I remember when I was in college, I went to a conference in Texas. I've been to a couple conferences there, but I went to one and we went to the Fort Worth stockyards and we just had the best time. I mean, it's just the food there is amazing. I mean, all of the things. One of my dear friends from that I met through church, she is originally from Texas, and she and her husband just moved back to Plano, which is not too far from Dallas Fort Worth area. No. And yeah, so anyway, I could sit here and we could just do an entire episode talking about how awesome Texas is. But that's not what this is about. So without further ado, I want you to give us the Carly 101 and tell us all about your story and how you started Tribe Alive.
Sure. Yeah. So I started Tribe Alive. We're going on about, 4 years ago. I at the time was working in traditional fashion and doing store design and merchandising for we were in New York City. And at the time I was working for Ann Taylor. And then we got relocated to Texas, and I relocated to Texas with J. Crew, and my husband and I were in the middle of finalizing our adoption, and just we're in this really great place. We were growing our family. I was super fulfilled and happy with my career, but really the adoption of my daughter changed everything for me. And, I feel like my story and Tribe Alive story is really rooted in her. And when we went to Ethiopia. We were there for a long time trying to finalize what ended up just being a really complicated adoption process. And while we were in Ethiopia, we spent a lot of time in our daughter's orphanage so that we could slowly transition her out of what was her first home and her first family. And what we witnessed really for an hour a day was birth parents coming to visit their children in the orphanage. And for me, it was just really shocking to see, and something I felt that I was so uneducated about. I had spent my whole life wanting to adopt children and be a part of impacting the orphan crisis. And there I was in my daughter's orphanage and looking at adoption and child relinquishment in a completely different way.
Wow.
And it just struck me that these children were wanted. They had parents who loved them. They had parents who wanted them, but they were in an orphanage because their parents weren't able to feed them. They weren't able to provide a roof over their head for, reasons based on poverty. And for me, it just felt like the greatest injustice I had ever seen was parents not having a chance and a choice to be able to raise their children. And it just felt like poverty should not be a reason that you can't keep your child.
Yeah.
So we came home, we brought our daughter home, and I had a short maternity leave and got back to work and, went back to a job that I had previously loved and just felt really fulfilled at and really successful at. And I just didn't feel the same way anymore. And I remember having a conversation with my husband that I didn't feel like I was working in an industry or doing something that was honoring Elie's birth mother. And I felt like that was really important, and that I wanted my daughter to grow up and learn through me that women like her birth mother matter really deeply, and that she matters as much as I do.
Yeah.
So our plans as a family slowly started to shift, where we thought that we would kind of jump right back into another adoption. And I just decided I didn't want my legacy or my efforts to be centered in raising other women's children, but I wanted to have more of an impact on the true cause of child relinquishment, which is really the economic insecurity that women face in the developing world. So I started Tribe Alive utilizing fashion. It was something I knew. It was something I was experienced in, really as a hobby, to help a few women in Honduras, partnering with this amazing nonprofit called Mi Esperanza and the artisans they have there. And then we partnered with an amazing organization in Guatemala, and just started small. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea where it would go or how it would grow, but we started, and 4 years later, we're employing over 200 artisans in 6 different countries, and just seeing the impact of the brand truly keep families together and give women the opportunity to raise their children in the way that they dream of raising their children.
That's absolutely incredible. This is an issue and a topic that I do feel like we talk about it a lot on this podcast, but I don't think it's something we even talk about enough, is the issue of orphans who are not actually orphans, and just what that looks like in so many developing nations where parents are having to drop their kids off at orphanages simply because they cannot afford to raise them, and what it looks like to provide economic stability for families and for moms to be able to raise their kids. And, I say this all the time as well. It's just like these moms, these women, like, they want a job. They just want a job. They just want an opportunity, and they just want a chance to provide for their family. So I love that you took what you knew, which was fashion, and taking it to, and using it in a way, using that gift and that passion in a way that impacts so many other people. So I would love to know just what did those early stages look like when you got the idea for Tribe Alive and you're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. How did you begin to know where to look? How did you find with Mi Esperanza? How did you find the organization in Guatemala? Like, did you just kind of start designing clothes, or did you kind of work backwards and find what they were doing first and then adapted it here?
Well, I mean, gosh, in the beginning, I just had no clue. Honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. I really wasn't sure how to get started, but I'm really lucky that my aunt runs a nonprofit in Honduras. She is who founded Mi Esperanza, 15 years ago.
Awesome.
So I grew up with this woman and this role model in my life who dedicated her life to helping impoverished women and dedicated her life to being one of the pioneers of really fair trade product and ethically made things. So I got to just see this nonprofit in Honduras flourish, and it was a place that was really special to me and that I had traveled to many times. And after we adopted Elie and brought her home, we took our annual trip to Honduras and brought Elie, and I just was reinvigorated and seeing what they were doing down there. And just, watching women work and watching women create beautiful things, but it was being done on a small scale, and it was products that were really being marketed and sold to missionaries. And I just saw a place for myself in what they were doing. I saw that I didn't need to recreate what they were doing. I didn't even need to start something anew. I just wanted to be a part of it, and saw that, well, wait a minute, I have design experience and I know how to help these women and help this organization get access to the marketplace. And I know how to consult and advise on modern designs that women in the U.S. would be interested in buying. Yeah. So it started there, but it was really inspired by them. And, I'm really humbled by that just this amazing little nonprofit in Honduras, I don't think really even expected to be where they are now, because they're now our main partner and main producer. And, they've worked on 80,000 unit orders for us. And wow. I mean, it's just an incredible organization, but they really opened up doors for me, led the way, and still continue to, teach me how to help in a productive way. Because there's so many times that helping really hurts the developing world.
Yes.
And I need to walk alongside people that will really keep me honest and keep me educated on what the issues are in the countries that we work in. And our nonprofit partners are really the essence of everything that we do. So it started with them, and it started there. And I actually never thought that we would grow beyond that. Yeah. And it started with jewelry. They were starting a small jewelry program. And I was like, I want us to, I want to start a company and we'll design some jewelry pieces. And we started working with just 4 women in the beginning. And all they knew how to do in the beginning was, simple but beautiful, like just easy beaded designs, like really beginner skill sets. And now our women are master jewelers. They're soldering, they're metalsmith workers. I mean, I know you've seen our jewelry collection. It's incredible to see in 4 years' time, women who most had never had a formal education. Some of them don't read and write. They started by Mia Speranza training them how to string beads, and now look at what they're doing. And to me, that's the best part about what we do, is seeing the progress and the progression and the true partnerships between us and these nonprofits. We need them so badly, and they need us.
Yeah.
It really started with them, and I always credit it back to them and how they just opened that door for me.
I would love for you to share a little bit and let's dig a little deeper into what you talked about. You hit on this briefly about how sometimes what we think is actually helping is actually hurting. What are some examples that you've kind of learned over the years, or kind of what is something you see now as like, oh man, I had no idea, in the beginning, I really would have thought this would have been helpful, but this was actually hurtful. What are some of those lessons you've learned along the way?
Well, I think from the very beginning, I really learned that Tribe Alive was not going to be rooted in a give back model. There's so many brands where it's based more in charity or nonprofits or organizations. It's really rooted in charity, which is needed, but I just was able to learn and see the effects of opportunity. It's sort of like that saying, if you give a person a fish or teach a person to fish. And I really wanted to teach people to fish. And because I'm a woman, I know that what opportunity means to me. I know it feels like to be successful, to feel capable, to be a part of taking care of my family. And that's where I get my self-esteem. And I wanted that for other women. And nobody, for us, it's about employing people. It's about lifting them out of poverty. But what we do is really rooted in women believing in themselves and recognizing their worth, recognizing their capabilities. And once that happens, everything changes. They make different decisions for themselves, for their families. So I just really wanted to be a part of a movement that was creating opportunity and not giving away anything. I think, working in countries where the NGO world has really flooded in, like countries like Haiti, and where there are brands that are giving away shoes in communities where it's putting local shoemakers out of business. And we, whenever there's a disaster, we send in all of our T-shirts and all of our American things, and we don't realize that we're then crushing those countries' economies. Yep. So I think, I love that I feel like Americans rise to the occasion when there is a disaster and when there is a need. But I think a lot of times we do that in a way that isn't educated, and it ends up hurting these countries rather than helping them. And it's not because anyone has bad intentions. It's just that we don't know better. So I feel like and trust me, I have made mistakes too, and I have made the wrong decisions, but it's why I'll never make the decision to create our own workshops and studios in these countries. It's why I always want to walk alongside these nonprofit partners who are constantly educating us on how we help specifically in that country and what the specific needs and issues are in the countries that we work in. Because it would be devastating to me if our mission ended up causing harm when all we ever intended was for it to cause good.
Yeah. I think that issue that you bring up of talking about sometimes what we do that's really well-intentioned is actually the opposite of, is really, crushing economies is such a important topic. I actually coincidentally just, it was published, I'm looking at it right now. It was published May 29th. I mean, we're recording this in June and this airs in July, but this article just came out. It was from the Washington Post, where it talks about how African nations are fed up with the West's hand-me-downs, and how, like, when you go and donate your clothes to the Salvation Army or Goodwill, it's pretty much just sold off to a private company and shipped to sub-Saharan Africa. And it's a $1 billion industry. And it's just like, it's becoming so overwhelming to these African nations that they don't even know what to do, and it's crushing their economy. I mean, it's just filling their landfills. But it's like, what what do you do? And it's such a huge issue. Like, how do you educate millions of people on a better way to donate your things or a better way to help? People think like, oh, okay, I'm going to clean out my closet. I'm going to donate to Goodwill. And like, I've done a good thing, like wipe my hands. Right. I'm good. And it's actually like, no. That's not actually that helpful.
It's so true. And it's really not, I love that you bring up that article because it's such a great article. And it's not even just crushing economies. What people don't realize is it's taking away cultural preservation. In Guatemala, there are things called pacas now, where it's all American secondhand things. And that's what Guatemalans are buying. And women who used to weave their clothes and like make indigenous Mayan wupiels and wear them, and it's a part of their culture. And women who made money as weavers, weaving clothes for other people, now it's cheaper and it's easier to buy our secondhand things. So it's not even putting local makers out of work, but it's crushing tradition. And it's a really big problem, and it's a bigger problem than I know how to solve.
Oh, for sure.
And it doesn't mean, for us, it's like we never want people to feel, we just never want to be a platform where we're like, if you wear anything unethical, you can't be a part of this movement. Like, this change is really hard, and it's still a process for me. But I think, if anybody would ask me like, well, how do we do better? I think we just have to think about a lifestyle with less. I think if we keep consuming and keep consuming and keep consuming, there's waste to that. But it's like, if we invest in just the fewer, better things that we need in life that we're going to hold on to for a long period of time, it's like, that's how we can combat all this consumerism and all this waste and all of these things that just end up in landfills. Even for us as a brand, we're like, how do we impact waste? How can we be more sustainable? Because we saw even waste in our own clothing collection. So we've moved half of our clothing model to a factory in Guatemala where everything comes from upcycled denim. Literally bags and bags and bags of what would have just ended up in a landfill is made into incredible and beautiful textiles. So as companies, we should all be thinking about, how can we be a part of affecting this problem? And then as consumers, we have to really think about, the things we buy really better mean something to us, because if they don't, they can be really detrimental to the world.
Oh, yes. And I love that you made that comment about how sometimes people in the ethical fashion world take on the attitude of, if you shop at Target, you can't sit with us. And that is something I have really wrestled with and really struggled with. And it's even part of why I am sometimes hesitant to call myself, or like when somebody asks what I blog about, I'm really hesitant to say I'm an ethical fashion blogger, because I have met, and like I know that there are people that categorize themselves that listen to this show. So I love you. You know who I'm talking about. But there are sometimes like, I feel like in the quote ethical fashion blogger community, even like if you aren't zero waste, and if like you own something from J. Crew, like you are going to ethical fashion hell. And like, and so it hurts me, because I feel like that then makes the people or the ethical fair trade community feel exclusive, which is what I don't want, because my whole goal, and part of why I started this podcast and part of what I do with my blog, is I want everyday consumers. Like, I consider myself, I'm an early 30s suburban white mom. Like, I drive a minivan. My 21-year-old self hates me. Like, my 21-year-old self that, like, even 4 years ago, I was like, I will never drive a minivan. And now I'm like, y'all, get in my minivan. Look at my sliding doors. I got a DVD player. Like, I love my minivan, and I'm not ashamed. But 4 years ago, I would have, like, punched myself in the face knowing that I am who I am. I mean, there are times where like I'll be sitting and like my husband's like, what would your 21-year-old self think of you right now? I'm like,
oh, I think all of us, our 21-year-old selves, it's so not approved. And I think that's the beauty of it.
Oh, no. Yeah. So I like, when I think of myself as the early 30s white suburban minivan driving mom, like I'm the average, I'm the average consumer, I guess, in a lot of ways. And so like I just want to show like, other, doesn't that be, like any race, whatever, but I want to show like the quote average consumer. You can care about the brands that you buy from. Like, you can buy ethically for yourself and your kids. Like, it does not have to break the bank. It does not need to be this overly complicated thing. It's just about educating yourself in a particular area and starting with one thing. Like,
and I think in life we just have to do the best that we can. And I think
with what we're given.
So it's like so many platforms and so many industries. It's all or nothing. And I think we're seeing that so much in our country right now. And it's polarizing and it's dividing people. And, I believe there are many things where there is right or wrong, and we should stand up for those things. But I think, especially as women, it's like and at Tribal Live, it's like we want to create a place where it's like you're all welcome here, whether you can afford to buy a $20 necklace or a $250 dress. Like, from a pricing perspective, we want it to be accessible, because so many brands they're ethical, but it's basically luxury, and that's not accessible to the everyday consumer. So we've cut so many people out just based on price, and then we've cut so many people out just based on sort of a self-righteous platform where none of us are doing it perfectly, and all of us are trying. And so I feel like it's really important for us that we're never shaming people. We don't usually talk about, I do encourage people to try to really step away from like the fast fashion consumer companies, because that is causing major harm and hurt in the world. But it's also be okay with the fact that maybe you didn't know better, and maybe you know better now, and you slowly start to make those changes. And you're not a bad person if you shop at Target. Could we all do better and know that we can do better? But it's not all or nothing. And I think that if we ask people to be all 100% in on something, that's when we're going to lose momentum. And that's when people aren't going to engage, because it just feels too hard. I did it to myself and got rid of everything in my closet, and 25 things could maybe afford me one thing in the ethical fashion space. And it felt paralyzing to me, and being perfect felt paralyzing. And so it's not realistic for my life that every single thing in my closet is completely ethically made and completely sustainable. And I think a lot of people would assume that it would look like that, but that's not the truth. I'm a human, and I'm a normal woman, and I'm just doing the best I can, and I'm still learning and trying. And I think that's just a lifelong process for all of us. It's just trying to be better.
Okay, I know you're loving this conversation with Carly, and I wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsor of the show, and that's CauseBox. As you know, CauseBox is my favorite ethical subscription box, and I have been a subscriber for over 2.5 years. Each season, a new box is released filled with everything from accessories and home goods to jewelry and the best in skincare and wellness products. Now, these products are not only amazing, they are also doing the most good. The products are also not just beautiful, they're also useful. The summer box is sold out. I'm really sorry. It's sold out fast. But do not fret, because there is an exclusive special edition box that is available now that contains the best products from the spring and summer cause box. And there's even an exclusive product for this box. It's amazing. So to reserve your special edition spring summer cause box, go to stillbeingmolly.com/causebox and use the coupon code MOLLY for $15 off. Now back to my conversation with Carly. I have friends, like dear friends, who I love, and they love me, and and I'll be like, oh, I love that shirt. Where'd you get it? And they'll be like, Amazon. It was $9.99, and I'm like, it's okay. Like, I'm not going to fault you. It's adorable. I love it. And yes, I shop at Target, and and I have young kids, and man, kids are so hard because they grow out of their clothes so quickly, and they put a hurting on it. And my kids, Lord knows, they just get everything and anything on their clothes. And
yeah, mine too.
So sometimes yes, I got to go to Target, and I got to, buy a pair of $5 shorts, because I know that they're not going to fit in 3 months, and I can't I'm not spending $50 on a pair of shorts they're going to wear for 3 months. I'm just not going to do it.
And it doesn't mean that you're a fraud or you're not an ethical fashion blogger. It just means that you're a real human that people can relate to. I mean, and that's so important. Relatability, I think right now is so important. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and, it's all about the quote unquote woke movement. And I want to believe that I am a woke person.
Me too.
This ex-governor, he was a governor in my hometown state, Massachusetts, and he made a really powerful statement where he's like, I just feel like, and he's very progressive, and he said, I feel like the woke movement needs to listen to the waking. Like the woke needs to invite the waking into the space. And that, if we have this platform of, well, we just know better and you don't, and it's like, that's not healthy for anyone. And progress does not happen in that space. And I just really love that. Like, listen, that some people are waking, and that's okay. Yeah. I'm waking still in so many ways.
Oh, that is good.
I know. Don't you love that?
It's good.
I wish I could say that was my quote, but it was not. It was Deval Patrick, but I thought it was great.
Yes. I mean, and that is so applicable in so many areas of our lives in general. I mean, and I think I'm a Christian. So as a Christ follower and somebody who I didn't grow up a Christian, there are issues that I still wrestle with God all the time. And I'm just like, Jesus, I'm reading what you're saying here. I don't necessarily know that I understand it. And maybe it's one of those issues I'm going to wrestle with my whole life. Right. And when I get to heaven, it probably is not going to matter anymore. But maybe I'll ask you about it then. Right. And I think we sometimes try to categorize people, and we try to divide ourselves, and that just does no good for anyone.
Absolutely.
At what point did we forget how to disagree with each other?
I don't know. I mean, I think.
When did that happen?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm like, when did this become? I mean, I think right now is a very special time in our country, and a very particular time. I'm like, to not have to go into that too deeply, because I might never stop talking if I do.
Yeah.
But so I think it's a really hard time, but I think it's an important time too, because it has created people who normally are on different sides of the spectrum, I think, see the same issues and the same wrongs. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of issues that have united us, but I also feel like there's issues that just continue to divide us. And it's, my husband and I were in this place. We have a multiracial family. We have a refugee immigrant daughter. So there's a lot of issues right now that are affecting us personally. And it was really hard for me for a long time to even have a conversation with anyone about just the political climate and what our views were based on, views of other people.
Yeah.
And I just sort of realized, how is that helpful?
Yeah.
Just shutting people out, refusing to talk about it, refusing to share my perspective, because maybe if I share my perspective in a respectful, calm, kind way, maybe that's how we learn from each other. And moving to Texas was really healthy for me. I come from a very progressive state, very liberal state, and I moved to one of the most conservative states in the country. And I think a lot of my misconceptions about maybe what conservatives were like, or maybe what, Christians were like, because I didn't grow up in a Christian household, none of it was true. I mean, of course, it's like some stereotypes, you come across them and they're true, but I think living in a place that's so different from where I grew up, my views certainly haven't changed, but it's allowed me to really see the other side and respect the other side and understand the other side when it's not harmful to somebody else.
Right.
So I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah.
To just, I thought I was so open-minded, and I was about the world, but I wasn't open-minded about certain issues in my own country. And I think that was really an important place that I needed to grow into.
Yeah. And I love what you said just about how there are certain issues that we can, how can we have a constructive conversation, and how do we, just as people, whether it's in politics or life or, our beliefs or our communities, we're all different. And so at what point do we begin to learn how to respect each other's differences and learn from each other's differences and appreciate each other's differences?
Right.
I mean, there's so many things. I grew up in a home, my mom passed away when I was in high school, but I saw the most loving, encouraging, supportive marriage. And my parents were just madly in love with each other. But my dad is a hardcore conservative Republican, and my mom was a flaming liberal Democrat. So
I love that so much because I don't even know how that works. Yeah. But I love that story.
And they really they learned very early on in their marriage, like what they could safely talk about and what they couldn't. And I remember this is one of those stories that just warms my heart every time I think about it. But the 2000 election, my mom was sick for a really long time, and some of the listeners know part of her story, but she was a army nurse in Vietnam, and so she had a disease that she contracted due to her exposure to Agent Orange, and so she was sick for a very, very long time, for about 10 years. And she died in 2002, but in 2000, the day of the 2000 presidential election, she was so sick she could not get up and get to the polls. And she couldn't vote that day. And I remember her crying in her bed, and she begged my dad to not go vote because she couldn't cancel his out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love your mom.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
She couldn't put her vote in, but if she canceled his vote, it was the same thing.
Right. So she's like,
that.
She's like, if we don't go vote together, then it will be like both of us voted.
Oh my gosh, that story.
I
love that you have that story to hold on to. That is amazing.
Isn't that the best story? And my dad, he agreed. He's like, I won't go vote because you can't. And because she couldn't cancel his out. So I just but that story always just cracks me up because it was such a picture of what their differences were, yet their love for each other and their respect for each other and transcended those differences. And I learned so much from that because, even in my own marriage, my husband and I, we disagree on certain issues, and that's okay. And we've learned from each other on things. And there are some things he's kind of come around on and some things I've kind of come around on, and they vary in so many different ways. But I just think that I was modeled that in such a way that I'm so grateful for, that I know a lot of other kids did not get that kind of modeling in their parents. And but it has taught me so many other things just in my relationships in general and how I approach meeting new people and making new friends and my community, understanding that my love for a person or my love for my passion for people and my passion for caring about people surpasses their political, religious, or personal beliefs. Right. It's at the end of the day, I love and I care about people, and that's what matters to me. And so yes, there are going to be issues that we disagree on, but how do we act like grown adults?
And just treat each other with kindness and respect. And it's hard. It is really hard, especially when there are issues that are important to you, that you feel are at risk. So as a family, it's been really hard. And I shut myself off to a lot of people after the election, and then just realized, okay, well, I'm contributing to the problem, So I think that's what we have to think about. It's what my daughter goes to a Montessori school, and they always are teaching about peacemakers. And sometimes she'll hear me say things that, if I watch the news or I get upset about something, she might hear me say something that maybe isn't kind. And she's always like, Mommy, do you want to be a peacemaker or a peace breaker? And I'm like, you know what, Elie, I want to be a peacemaker. I do. So I think I want to be a peacemaker, but I don't want to be passive and I don't want to be apathetic, but I want to respect people and I want to be kind always, regardless of what someone's views are, because we all know what we know, and we're just trying to do the best we can. So I think that's the thing too. I don't think there are people out there trying to cause harm, trying to target certain groups of people. I think there are people who are afraid and don't know better. And, if we're not willing to stand up and maybe teach people what we might know, then, where do we go from there? Yeah. Oh, man. And that, we can learn so much from our kids. Oh, the way our kids interact with each other. And that reminds me, this is a little bit unrelated, but sort of related. So my daughter was in her 4-year-old preschool class this year. And one of their big things was called being a bucket filler. And so if you use kind words, if you were helpful, if you were, encouraging or whatever, that's called being a bucket filler. You're filling somebody else's bucket.
But if you say
that.
something, negative, or if you lie, or, you don't, you're not playing kindly or whatever, you're being a bucket dipper. And like, I remember one day, like, I wouldn't let her, I don't know, it was like maybe she wanted to watch a show and I said no or something. And she's like, Mommy, you're being a bucket dipper. And like, she just walked out. And I was like, what? I'm a bucket dipper?
I know. But I love like that kids are learning from an early age. Like, listen, you can be one thing or you can be the other. And they're learning like which one to choose. And I feel like as adults, we have to be reminded of that. Like, which one do we want to be? And yeah, I mean, my 7-year-old, she's like my little guru. She's just like, I mean, she says things that just hold me accountable and make me think. And I feel like I have like this little Buddha walking around my house, like just constantly saying enlightening things and bringing me back to kindness. And so I'm lucky because she just has nothing but light and kindness inside of her. And I have many other things inside of me. So I'm just so lucky because I just want to be more like her.
Oh, she's the best. She is the best.
She's pretty amazing.
Oh, man. Okay, so Carly, before we transition to the get to know you portion, so where do you, obviously Tribe Life has come so far in 4 years, and your collections are amazing. Everything is beautiful and so well made. And I mean, every time I wear like my Tribe Life earrings or carry my little Tribe Life clutch or wear a Tribe Life dress, like people always stop me and ask me about it because it's just
I love
so
that.
beautiful. Where do you guys see yourself going in the next few years? Like what's on your dream list for Tribe Alive?
Well, we just opened our first storefront.
Yes.
So that was sort of last year's dream list, and just being more accessible to customers and being able to have a space that brings women together and partners with local nonprofits and, does work in our own community. And our story is just wonderful and powerful, and we want to be able to share it with more people. So we just kind of accomplished a really big dream of ours, and we've been open 3 weeks now, and it's been amazing. So that was really what our focus was this past year and these past few months. But looking into the future, it's what's great, I feel like, about us and about the amazing women that work for Tribe Alive is we all have just the same mindset and the same goal, and it's just to employ people and employ them well. I wouldn't say that like we want to employ more people. I think I want to dial back and employ people better. So for us, we, have really gotten to know our artisans and have an understanding of what their lives look like, what the challenges are. And there are just areas of their life that we can have a bigger and better impact on.
Yeah.
We have this amazing artisan. Her name's Sulema, and she works in Honduras. She's the jewelry production manager there, and she does all of our sampling. She's a master jeweler at this point, and she reached out to us, basically saying that she couldn't afford the matricula cost and basically the tuition and startup costs for her kids' school. And it was a few $100s, and I get this email, and it just hit me where I was like, this woman is probably the most important artisan that we have. She's bright, she's hardworking, she's talented, she's working full time, and yet she's still struggling. And we're paying very fair wages through, the nonprofit we partner with pays very good wages in Honduras. Yet she's still struggling to meet the tuition costs for her kids. And we were like, we just had this moment where we were like, we're not doing enough. Like, we're just not doing enough. And really for us, we were like, what do we believe is actually going to impact poverty? What is actually going to change the cycle of poverty in these women's lives? And the reality is the women that we work with will always live in poverty. We're now able to provide them with employment that gives them the opportunity to raise their children. But who's going to break the cycle of poverty in that family are their kids, and it's their kids getting educated. So we've decided that we're looking to start a nonprofit leg where we're able to continue with our social enterprise and continue to be a part of employing women well to make our things, but that we really want to develop education sponsorship for the children of our artisans, because in a lot of the countries these women live in, the public education system is really terrible, if even existent, and teachers are constantly on strike because they're not getting paid, and costs are high to even attend public school. And if you are poor and you're going to choose if your family eats or your kid has books, it's not a choice. You're choosing that your family eats. So we're just looking at increasing our impact model and just doing more and diving deeper into the lives of our artisans and diving deeper into the social impacts that we as a brand can have and the programs we can help set up. Because, I think what's been really humbling for us is, we've really grown and we've done a lot of good things and we have an amazing artisan network and we're proud of our product, but there are so many things that we could be doing better and so many parts of our artisans' lives that we could have an impact on.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're interested in, is just, walking alongside them in a more meaningful and a more impactful way.
That is amazing. And I cannot wait to see you achieve that goal, that dream, and just the massive impact that you guys are going to have. That is incredible, Carly. I love it.
Thank you. I
love it. Well, this is the portion of the show where we get to know you a little bit better on a kind of fun level. So I have some fun questions to ask you. And as my listeners know, this is also the portion of the show where my executive producer husband gets to insert his own sound effect or movie quote of choosing to transition us to the get to know you round. And
I love this portion.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Every week it's a surprise. I never know what he's going to pick. So who knows? It's always an adventure.
I don't think you ought to be doing this to yourself, Andy. I mean, Mexico is way the hell down there, and you're in here, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, right. That's the way it is. It's down there, and I'm in here. I guess it comes down to a simple choice, really. Get busy living, or get busy dying.
The first question is, what is your go-to song at a karaoke night?
Oh my gosh, Molly. I have no bigger fear in life than karaoke. I will not step foot in a karaoke bar.
Oh my gosh.
I literally, the thought, I have a stomach ache even thinking about it right now.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
I am legitimately terrified of the thought of karaoke. So I can't even give you a song because it will never happen.
No, that's hilarious.
Never partake. I know. I have like a legit fear.
But I think that tells me so much about you, and I love it. I love it. I think it's great. Okay, if someone were to play you in a movie about your life, who would you want it to be?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. Oh, let's see. There's so many that I love. I mean, I really love Emma Stone.
Oh, she's the best.
Love her. Yeah, I love her.
She's so funny.
I think that would be my choice. She is, and it's probably why I would want her to play me, because I'm not really funny or quirky, and she is, and so I feel like she has something that I want a little bit of.
Oh,
so, yeah, I would choose her.
I love it. What is your guilty pleasure?
So, every night, I'm a bit of a health freak, so it's like all day I am into green juices and like daily harvest bowls, and I eat really healthy. And then I get in bed every single night and eat potato chips and drink wine.
Oh my gosh.
Single night. I mean, not to excess, but like I look forward to that every day, like a little bowl of potato chips in bed with a little glass of wine.
I love it. That's awesome. I love people's little secrets like that are like not necessarily their secret, but they're like, because like I work out at a local gym called Burn Boot Camp, and they have locations all over. But it's so funny. Like when some of our trainers will just be like, because they're so healthy all the time, and they'll just be like, oh yeah, I love a margarita. Like give me all the sugar, salt rim. Like I want a big margarita. Or like somebody would be like, I will sit and crush a bowl of chips and salsa. Or
Yeah, it's definitely, and it's like a daily go-to, but it's my thing at night.
I love it. And this is my last question, and that is, for what are you most grateful today?
What am I most grateful? Well, I think just my family. Every day is, my family, my friends. I think just the people that surround me, the women I get to work with every day. I think, I have I'm raising 3 girls in my home, and I'm so grateful for just women right now, and the women that surround me, whether it's my daughters or my granddaughter or my friends or my cousins or my aunts, my mother, my sister. Like, I just am surrounded by really inspiring, powerful women. And I think right now, especially at this point of time, that's what I'm most grateful for, to just be so inspired by women.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, Carly, this has been incredible and such an honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to chat with me and to tell me the Tribe Live story, and to really just, I loved getting a chance to just kind of talk about some stuff that's tough, but I think it's important conversations to have. And, you know, it's conversations I love to have because I think that we are able to grow through them. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Molly. This was so fun. I would like to put in an application to be your friend at this point.
Yes! We are totally friends. We are totally friends.
Okay, great. No, thank you for having me. It was such an honor.
Goodness, look, I know I've said it before and I'll say it again, but this really was one of my favorite episodes. I look up to Carly so much and I love everything that she does and stands for. And Tribe Alive is such an incredible brand that not only makes beautiful things, but also empowers beautiful people. I hope you loved this episode as much as I did. Another huge thank you to this week's podcast sponsor, CauseBox. Visit stillbeingmolly.com/CauseBox and use that coupon code Molly for $15 off. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you are a new listener of the show, welcome. Be sure to visit the archives for past shows featuring amazing, amazing entrepreneurs and business owners who are quite literally changing the world with what they do for a living. And if you're a regular listener of the show, thank you so much for tuning in and week out. Thank you so much for your support. Now, you can head on over to iTunes, Spotify, wherever you are listening to this, and make sure you are subscribed to the show. Clicking that subscribe button helps to make sure you never miss a new episode. And if you have a moment, would you mind leaving us a review? Leaving me a review really does help me to know what you're liking and how the show is impacting you. And it just kind of gives us that social proof to other people that you love the show and you think it's awesome. And if you share the show on social media, which I love when you do, be sure to use the hashtag Business with Purpose Podcast or tag me at Still Being Molly on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. This show is edited by my amazing husband and executive producer, John Stillman, and the music is by Mark Killian of Third Wheel Media. Thank you so much for listening, and go do something good with purpose on purpose.